Nahaganisinga, Zanabichu, Nanabia. Welcome back, everyone, to Rising Warriors Rachael Kulei. I am Nabimiya Dachinup, woman who travels with the stars. I am enrolled with Northwest Band Shoshone. My grandmother is Darlene Neiman, and my grandparents, Linford Neiman. So today we are going to be talking about protecting the sacred wolves. And for me, this has been something that I have actually been wanting to talk about. And our brother here, Mato, reached out to come and talk about the wolves and bring more awareness to what is happening. And he has some knowledge that was passed down to him from elders. And so that is one of the things that he's going to be doing today, is sharing some of this wisdom from elders that has been passed down. And I will also share some of things that I know from some elders that have been passed down to me as well. But before we get there, I'm going to have our brother over here introduce himself and where your people are from and a little bit about yourself and your background and what you do.
Sure. Um, I'm Mato Woksape or Mko Vieux. I'm citizen band Potowatomi, Dakota, Blackfeet. I have a fourth unknown tribal genetic from a grandmother due to adoption. My grandfather and my great uncle were senior members of the American Indian movement. Some things I've been involved in was the Battle of White Klay. I went to Oak Flats and protect Wensler Nosey Sr. when he thought the army was coming to get him.
Mm,
All kinds of things. We have 283 direct actions. So we took the front lines on a lot of those invisible struggles. Um, in difficult times when there wasn't much resistance in this region,
mm-hmm.
we fought the army, the mounted cavalry. They chased us with helicopters, armed rangers. They used chemical weapons on us. So we've been very active and present. Um, an elder asked me to protect wolves after I got off longest walk 3, reversing diabetes,
Mm,
and so I've been getting more into that. And I started off with like some fasting. It was at the same time that Chief Theresa Spence was fasting, and
mm.
so I joined that, and people from other parts of the world were joining, and so we had a lot of momentum at that time. Then I learned about Ojibways and Anishinaabes up in Minnesota, who
Mm.
were also using spirituality to protect the wolves. And um, people that came before us that were influential was Eddie Benton Benai of
Mm-hmm.
the American Indian movement,
Mm-hmm.
who used Ojibwe spirituality to get wolves reintroduced to the state of Wisconsin.
Oh,
And so
okay.
now a lot of these people are passed on or um, elderly, and it's time for a new era to embrace these struggles.
It's so true, and it's a big responsibility that we have to take, and especially when we deal with generational trauma. And there's a lot of us that are just now starting to reconnect and have the resources to even be able to reconnect to our traditions and culture and things like that, where there are tribes that were able to keep their traditions and things, like the Navajo. They're a huge one that were able to keep their culture, their tradition, their language. And so it's it's challenging for a lot of us that have that generational trauma. Like with my family, we were burnt off our land in Washkey. And so we actually, back in like Wound or Bear River Massacre, um, we were actually the center home of ceremonies. And so for the Shoshone, all the different Shoshone clans, they would actually travel into our land to do the ceremonies and things. And it was one time that, we the people saw that there was going to be the cavalry coming in and there was this going to be this genocide, and so there was no there wasn't a ceremony and the people didn't come in and to protect him. But my family, we didn't have anywhere to go, and so when the cavalry came and the people came, we were burnt off of our land and we were chased and killed out. And so there was a lot of my family that was killed, and then there was some that were, told to flee into the mountains and actually go and be with the wolves. And so that was one of the things, was that the wolves were also one of those trackers too, that I was told that, helped them get into these places, to be able to hide and where to go. So it's it's up to us. We have to actually do more work to seek out our elders and to get these stories, and before they leave, or else it really
Right.
does end up leaving with them. And so what you're saying, it's true what you're saying, because we are in a new generation. It's up to us. It's up to the elders to help and speak up before they pass and leave the knowledge to us, or they choose not to, and then it kind of like dies with them in that sense. And then it's our responsibility to go to them, because they also feel like their stories and things aren't wanted, and everybody's so caught up in social media and being in their phones, that these little ones, the grandparents, these elders, they see them and they're like, well, they don't want to hear the stories. They're too involved in social media or their phone, and when we talk, they're looking at their phone. They're not even listening the way that we're traditionally supposed to be listening.
Thank you.
And so we go through this battle of, we got to get out of the Western mindset in a way, and going back to those traditional ways of sitting with the elders, especially during wintertime. This is that time that we sit
Mhm.
and we learn those stories and get told those things. So going back to the elder, that he left this knowledge with you about the wolves, and you have this mission now that you're on, um from the elder. So it's like, so what knowledge are you wanting to share from this elder to keep his stories alive too?
Well, it was a woman who asked me to take action,
Of her.
and a lot of
Excuse me.
the education I had to get on my own. People didn't help me. She was fighting breast cancer and was unable to do these things, and I think that's why we call on warriors sometimes, because
Mm-hmm.
people have other things they're doing. Um, and so I started collecting these stories, and I haven't memorized very many of them, so I don't want to like attempt to say, or I would mess up. But I know what their message is and which tribes they're from, the ones that I understand. And I was talking to a what something you said reminded me. I was talking to a coastal band guy out here, and he
Mm-hmm.
said we're still in the process of remembering what our relationship to the wolf is.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, yeah, that's good.
It's true, because we can still have that relation. Like I was telling you earlier, my friend down in oh, it's my sister, my bear sister down in California. She, has this relation with a wolf. And so like what you're saying is I bore witness to this connection with the wolves that we can still have today. She moved into this house down into the redwoods, and one day there was this white wolf that just appeared and befriended her and started hanging out with her dogs, goes into the house and hangs out. But the moment that she leaves, he leaves the whole property. He'll leave the house. He won't stay there. But the moment that she comes back, he arrives. And so like they have this connection, and this wolf knows when she comes and when she goes. And I've gotten to, witness this. And I actually slept with the wolf. He slept on my bed one night that I stayed there. And just that connection with the wolf is, we have these connections with dogs, and we think that that's, this amazing thing to have a connection with this dog, and to feel their soul, and for them to have this, deep love and loyalty to you. But going to a wolf, that's a
Yeah.
whole nother level of spiritual protection, and because they protect you spiritually on that realm.
Oh yeah, it's life changing, and so I have two wolves with me always, and one of them he's more jovial and playful, but the other one is very protective. Mm-hmm.
So how did you come across with your wolves?
My wolves were gifted to me by people who've seen like my devotion to the struggle, and they called me and said that they had a couple wolves for me, and I needed to come get them now, but that I had to take both brothers, that we couldn't separate them.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, wow, that's going to be a huge undertaking. But
Yeah.
I didn't think long. I got in my vehicle and went to go pick them up. And there's there was like a test for me when I got to this place. Is like a butte, like where oddly enough, where those high places where we used to go to pray is where
Mm.
the person requested to meet me.
Huh.
And when I got there, there was a settler man in his truck, and he was teaching his kids, he was instructing his kids. And I heard him say, "Another dead coyote." And I like popped out of the bushes on him and like swung around like Rambo. And I looked him in the eyes and I said, "Another dead redneck."
Oh no.
And I think that was a test for me to see if I could was really like worthy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see that. Because there's so many different ways that you could take that situation.
Yeah.
So you were talking about Kanita, the Warm Springs reservation earlier. Let's. So what's going on with the wolves over there?
Right. So almost as long as I've known, because I started doing prayer walks out there. There used to be this elder, Manny Jim Kalapu, who I used to work with. Great guy, great family. His mother Geraldine as well. But I would go over there, and um, they'd let us set up the teepee in the yard and bring groups out there. But and then get on the radio and stuff. It was great. But I started learning about how the people there had wolves, and
Mm,
they knew that they were there. Um, and in some cases, maybe throwing them some food or something. Um, and then not really informing the state or anything that wolves were there, which is ideal. Because if
mm-hmm.
you find out about wolves, you don't want to report them to colonists the same the same group of people that made them extinct in Europe, the same group that drove them to extinction here in 1953 on our land.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't report them, and so only recently biologists have figured out that there's wolves near Warm Springs. And
Hmm.
so again, I'm trying to contact the tribes um, to make their land to flex some tribal sovereignty and make their land a no wolf hunt zone with a 30-mile buffer, which is as far as a wolf can travel in a day. And so they'd be joining Fond du Lac, Eastern Eastern Shoshone, and
Mm-hmm.
White Earth Nation
Mm.
in doing this. So it's a good time to get on board, and that's kind of that land back element. Land back's popular term right now, and so that's what I'm saying. Let's flex it and get 30 more miles of sovereignty for the
Right.
wolf.
I didn't know that about the Eastern Shoshones because I'm Eastern on my grandmother's mother's side, and so I wasn't aware about that.
Yeah, and
That's pretty neat.
I have two different Shoshone wolf stories. Um,
Oh, would you like to share them
I'm not gonna attempt to share it because I
now?
might mess it up, but
That's the one you have to read from.
yeah. But we're keeping track of these things, and getting it back out there.
That's beautiful. It just kind of it reminds me. I was gonna share a story with about one of the elders that I met with. So I was up in La Push, Washington, probably I want to say it was like 2014, 2013, 2014. And I was up there and visiting, and I was on one of the reservations up there. And I was just sitting around and just looking at the ocean and in this little cul-de-sac. And one day I was just sitting there, and all of a sudden this elder comes walking over to me, and he goes, "Can I sit with you?" And I was like, "Yes, sit with me." And he goes, I want to share a story with you." And I was like, I'd be honored to, hear your story and what you have to tell me." And he sat there and he goes, "Well, what do you know about the second coming?" And I tell him, I said, "Well, I know that it's coming soon, and I know that there's signs that we should be looking for, um, and there's prophecies of signs, to look for when that second coming is coming, when Christ and Creator is going to return again." And he would tell me, he goes, "Okay," he goes, "Now I want to tell you one of our coastal stories." And he said, "And where are you from? Who's your people?" And I said, "It's Shoshone, from Washakie, Utah." And so he goes, "Okay, so he goes, I really need to share this story with you because you're away from your people, and you don't know the stories of the coastal of the signs here." And he goes, "So I'm going to teach you the signs of, one of the signs." And I said, "Okay." So I gave him an offering, and he sat there and he said, "So a long time ago, there was this brother and this sister, and these wolves were coming into the encampment, and they were kind of, being a trickster in a way, and just kind of playing tricks and causing ruckus and things. And they wanted to, this boy and girl, they wanted to um, figure out, how they could protect their people from the wolves, and so that this wouldn't happen anymore." And so when they were praying, Creator told them that they take this wooden comb that they had, and to walk along the coast and take off all one piece of the comb, and then they go place it into the ground. And when they would go place it into the ground, the mountains would emerge. And so they walked along the whole coastal line, putting this piece of the wooden comb into the ground and emerging these uh, mountains. And the wolves came to them and said, okay, we'll leave and we'll go on the other side of the mountains, but we'll tell you that when time comes, we're going to come back and we're going to return over the mountains and we're going to come back into the coastal land. And when that time comes, we are coming to warn you that it's time to come inland. It's time to move away from the coast. That time of creator returning will be near, and we will be a warning to you that it is time to return back, inland and to move the people. And so he told me this story, and he goes, okay, now don't forget the story. And I was like, okay. And so I like really took note, and in my head of the story to really remember. And it was about a year later, I came home one night and there was two wolves that ended up coming at me. But they were aggressive. They weren't very nice. You could tell that they were angry, and like, because the homes were being destroyed, that they were actually having to come into the city to search for food. And so there was a lot of cats that had gone missing around that time too. 'Cause they're looking for food. If from where I'm at over here, it used to be forest and country land. Now it's city, and they're driving the wolves, and they're driving the bears even, and there used to be deer and elk and cougars and mountain lions, coming through our yard, and now you don't see any of them, but you do hear the wolves at night. So I hear the wolves, and because they're just right on the other side of the street here, is there's a big forest. And so you'll actually hear those wolves howling at night, and you can hear the difference between a coyote and a wolf. It's a very, very distinct sound. So you can hear them traveling together, the wolves and the coyotes at nighttime. But when that wolf came, that's when I remembered that dream, or that story that elder had told me in La Push.
Mm.
And I then from there, that's when I started seeing all these things happen, and Standing Rock happened, and I don't know, more happened after that. And then all these movements started happening.
I had a vision actually that um, it was the word of the great mystery was coming out of the mouth of the wolf, and in the
Mm.
dream, I there was a wolf that appeared to me, but I'm not afraid of wolves like other people. I
Uh-huh.
approached this wolf cautious. I knew it wasn't my own wolf, but nonetheless, I went to reach up the side of its mouth and see what was inside, and there was lightning forming. Lightning started
Oh.
to come out of the mouth, and I woke up. So elders were telling me, that's the word of the great mystery coming out of the wolf. And the wolf is the ultimate anti colonial symbol. Okay.
Mhm.
So wherever in people try to industrialize, they've ran into the 73 species of wolves across the planet. You
Mhm.
know, the Himalayan wolf, the Tasmanian wolf, on and on and on. And so there's that combat, but it's only when the people get like too big. They try to industrialize, they try to do this false civilization thing. So it's like a constant anti colonial reminder. The wolf
Mhm.
teaches us to work together, which is a very powerful message for right now. Like, um, America is teaching this false individuality, which human beings did not make it through 125,000 years of the so called hunter gatherer period with
Mhm.
as an individual. That is absurd. That is a lie. That is an illusion that I refuse to entertain.
Mhm.
So yeah, we need to unify to get strength. And the situation you were describing in Vancouver, tells me a couple things. That's a population that's struggling to even exist, and the way they've been driven into the city to eat cats, which is garbage meat to them,
Mm-hmm.
is because their pack order has been disrupted. Their main hunters have been killed, the alphas. Because I've seen um, night camera footage
Mm-hmm.
of wolves in basically healthy ecosystems. Um, and they have this odd occurrence that needs to end where the colonials are running cattle on so called national forests, so called public lands. But
Mm-hmm.
anyway, on the night camera footage, you could see like cows grazing and elk coming through, and then the wolves are chasing the elk. They don't want the cows. If they
Uh-huh.
really have their preference, they want wild meat. And so that's what the colonists keep on trapping and killing wolves when they conflict with them, and that turns the wolves into like beggars that come
Right.
after trash meat. So they're perpetuating this situation, and then like coyotes can eat like 16 rats in a day.
Mm.
So I've like I I get a kick out of. I think it's funny when colonists get infested with rats. My hometown right now is just infested with rats, and the college is doing urban coyote trapping. And they
Oh.
don't know a lot. Speaking of cats and dogs, where are their cats and dogs going missing? Well, they should check the college. They should
Mm-hmm.
ask the EPA. See?
I didn't know that. Huh. I like learning new stuff. So, is there a story that you can think of off the top of your head that you'd like to share?
Yeah. Um, Wolf and the Stars. Uh, Wolf was putting the constellations in the sky, the Big Dipper, the Three Bears, the Hunter, and then Coyote seen Wolf's magic bag of stardust.
Mm.
And when Wolf was sleeping, along came Coyote, who snatched Brother Wolf's bag of magic stardust, but then he tripped, and the bag of magic stardust that was actually kept in a teepee scattered across the sky, and that's how the stars are now in the Milky Way, as when they were supposed to be constellations that the wolf
Oh.
was placing in the sky. And when Coyote looks to the sky and sees what he's done, he howls. It makes him very sad.
Oh.
And so this story actually proves that Wolf is a creator figure, a deity, and is why I'm saying it needs to be respected under the American Indian Religious Freedom Act of 1978. And nobody enforces it, so it's up to us to enforce it. I'm from an ancient warrior society older than the United States. It's up to us to enforce it. It's up to the warriors to enforce it. And I was learning more about coastal people over here is different from Potowatomi. And my grandpa came out here with construction, and I had a great uncle who was stationed here for World War II. Is how we ended up here. Because some people are like, "You're Potawatomi. How'd you end up here?"
Mm-hmm.
That's how I end up here. Okay.
Okay.
And so, talking to the people out here, I learned that when they would go to war, it was more like everyone would go to war.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's kind of where we're at, is why I'm stressing more participation. And, we found the Kalapuya wolf story, which says that the wolf is the protector of the babies.
Hmm. I don't know of that one.
Yeah, Mother Cortex, the first woman, left the babies in charge, left the wolf in charge of the babies so they could go out and see what was going on in the land.
Oh, they watch over him.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, See, I love hearing these things because in my mind, if I go and I like close my mind and like if you let your imagination go, it's like I see these stories almost in what you're saying, like I've dreamt of these where you can see the wolves protecting the kids and um watching over them. And it kind of reminds me for some reason is like a Jungle Book, with Mowgli, how the wolves take him in and they're, raise him as his own cub. It's I see that same sense of, that protection of seeing these babies and, protecting them. And if you think about it, look at all these different dogs too. If we want to talk about an actual dog, there's so many different breeds of dogs that are protective, like a wolf. Like we have a Czechoslovakian Shepherd, and he looks like a wolf, but his persona is like a wolf, and I just call him a big wolf dog. But he is
Yeah.
so loyal and protective, but so spiritual at the same time. He can sense, anybody that has entities around him or just has bad intentions. He can feel them, and he's very protective over me. And then not only that, if I feel if we're out, because he's a service dog, and so if we're out and, I feel something, he'll pick up on it and he'll stay even closer to me. And he really won't leave your side. And so it's that same um, connection that I see with my sister that has, the wolf, with how that wolf walks around with her and stays with her in that protection. And then with my niece, our dog, he is so protective over her. And so it's exactly like what you're saying. So like I could leave the room, but he would sit right there next to her and not leave her side and watch over her and play with her and keep her entertained. And so I see that because then, that they have that playfulness too, where they can play with the kids and they keep them entertained in a sense so that they don't go and run off and go somewhere else. So I think that that's beautiful that those stories are still being kept alive, because
Mm-hmm.
we don't get to hear about these that all the time. I didn't get to hear that until now. I've dreamt of it. I've seen things,
Mm-hmm.
um of that connection with the wolves that we once had and still can have. But the closest thing that we get, to today, unless you have hands, someone to give you that wolf like he was gifted to you, then the closest thing to that, to understand, if you're watching, is that connection with the dog. That's that connection that we're talking about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's very spiritual in a sense too.
Yeah, it is spiritual, and we have a song that we use. We use the Anishinaabe wolf song with our movement, and so we're bringing back the songs too, you know, and that's a purification song. And some people are forgetting their purification songs, and
Mhm.
to me, it's a reminder to keep our ethics high and not to compromise. Politically, we see so much compromise these days. The other day, I heard someone say, settlers settle. And we don't want to settle. We want
Mm-mm.
to keep things very pure and have a high level of ethics. You know, that's why I still live in my van. I haven't sold out. So also a reminder for people to bolster those indigenous led movements. Don't run out to join like Defenders of Wildlife or 350.org or whatever it is, you know. Um, the political analysis of Defenders of Wildlife is to use non-lethals and put red ribbons on the fences, which may deter some wolves. I don't think very many. And so what that does is it allows colonialism to flourish.
Mm.
It lets colonialism go on with, it almost eases their mind about the trauma that they're inflicting on the biodiversity, on the landscape, on the continued genocide of indigenous people and our sacred animal.
Mm-hmm.
And so I disagreed with that. And I seen Idaho Fish and Wildlife offer Defenders of Wildlife a $50,000 bribe, a payoff. And I think they were doing that in front of me just to like, is like a power play and
Mm.
like an attempt at corruption. And it's like, it's sick. Like, we are the rightful stewards. And I believe that now colonists have demonstrated their inability to protect our wildlife. They are the cause of extinction. They are the
Mm-hmm.
cause of environmental degradation, water pollution, etc. And so now they've proven it. And so it's time for us to actually take those buildings back. And I know this is radical, but this is, as they collapse, this is where we're heading. And take
Mm-hmm.
those buildings back, because, and all their tools, their trucks, their computers, every tool, because that was all bought and paid for by taxpayers, if you want to get into it. So it technically belongs to the people, and if they can't protect the wildlife, we will. You know, it's indigenous people that are the stewards of this land since time immemorial, and we should be taking over again. We need
Mm-hmm.
our power back, our land back, but our power back.
Mm-hmm. 100%. I agree with that. It's time. And that goes into this dream that I had vision about 10 years ago. And in that dream, I saw all the natives rising together and we were coming together, and it was like each tribe was a petal of this rose that came together. And
Wow.
all of a sudden I saw like these tribes form together, and once it formed together, I started watching this like rose blossom. And with that was all of the 500 of the tribes, and then some, that
Yeah.
were blossoming as a rose. And as this was happening, it was this new journey that was happening. As it was like we were coming together, we were rising, we were stepping up, we were coming into our true, beings, our soul purpose, um, fighting for what's right, our traditions, our, is taking our voices back, but doing it in the honorable way. And in that vision, I saw that we started taking that back on what you were saying. And in the sense of, what, you guys are living on our land. The way that you guys live is not the way that we live on this land. And the ancestors of this land is not happy with how you do this. And we're taught that we don't own anything. We come into this world with nothing, and we leave this world with nothing. We own nothing. And that's why, it was this battle that we went through with the genocide and land getting taken from us, because we don't own anything. So who are we to say that you can't come onto our land when we don't own it? So
Yeah.
it was like you have these people, these conquerors that are trying to, conquer the heathen. And if you're not Catholic, then you are heathen and you are dirty and you are not worthy. And so they just had this mindset that if you weren't Catholic, and then you were a heathen. So therefore we will kill you and take your land. And they had no idea of how peaceful of a people we were. And if they would have, they would have understood that they would have been dead right off the get-go. If if we weren't a peaceful people,
Right.
they would have never survived. And so it's, in this dream I started seeing that voice coming back. I started seeing, the people, the rightful caretakers of this land stepping up and saying, you know what, this isn't working anymore. We
Right.
need to go back to living in harmony. We need to go back to living in, on our path and in our purpose, and get out of this worldly things and what's happening. And what is like in Sundance, when you're in Sundance, you focus on that pole, you're focusing on creator. The moment that you take your focus off of that and you focus somewhere else, then you fall. And then you'll fall onto someone's pain, you'll get lost. So it's like we got to have that drive and that focus, that clear focus. Like you're focused on that pole, you're focused on creator. And yes, be aware of what's going around you. I'm not saying, be ignorant to what's going around you. Just don't divulge yourself into it. Stay focused, because if you stay focused here, then you can get things done, and then we're going to be able to, save the wolves. We're going to be able to bring this balance and this harmony back to it. And as times comes, more people are becoming aware of this, and they are seeking. And that's what I saw, was that the world started seeking after the natives. They started seeking our knowledge. They started coming into this place of like, okay, we see this isn't working, but your guys's works. This, so teach us. And so
Right.
I started seeing that the world started coming to the natives, for this
Right.
healing and understanding.
And I've seen that at a really young age because I have an uncle by marriage who's a full blooded Miwok.
Hmm.
He ended up retiring from the forestry service, but they were all asking him because by the end of it, he knew more about trees than anyone in this agency, you know?
Uh-huh.
And so I seen how actually they were like using him too, because
Mm.
to benefit the colonial agency. And so that's why I want to abolish these illegitimate colonial agencies and like not to tokenize us or use us, but at like we're in charge now, indigenous
Hmm.
rule. And
Hmm.
they can work for us or make arrangements.
Yep. And that's what we've been, some other podcasts I've been talking about too, is, we should be finding these resources. And like what my grandparents taught us is that in order to survive in this world as an indigenous people, knowledge is your weapon. Knowledge is your modern day weapon. I'll say that again. Knowledge is your weapon. And
Mm,
I understand what my grandfather was saying. He would say, you have to learn. You have to learn the right way in order to be able to use that knowledge to be able to gain back and to be able to take back what is rightfully ours. If we don't have that education, then how are we going to beat them at their own game? How are we going to be able to stand up? How are we going to be able to take those lands back? How are we going to be able to protect and put these, protections up so that we as tribes across the United States and going into even to Southern America and into Canada, because we're all related. And
right.
that's a whole nother topic that we could talk on. That, you know I'll just say real quick that it was just the Europeans that put the divide in between Canada and the United States and Mexico and Central America and South America, when if you look at it, we're all connected. We're all the indigenous of America. And so it's, these borders that get put up, but that's a whole nother topic. But um going back to like, we all come together, we're all together. And even as that, Canada and going into the tribes in Mexico and southern, like we're all together, we're all indigenous, and somehow we got to sink that in the head that, get for us indigenous too, stop, put the borders out, like get the borders out of the mind.
It's
We're all
interfering
in
with
this
our power.
together.
Right.
Huh?
It's interfering with our power. Recently, I'm on this like differentiation between land and power and how we're not in control of our own destinies on our own land, and groups that keep calling themselves our allies are eroding our power, and then they have the audacity to wonder why we can't stop pipeline, why we can't protect the wolves, why all this stuff is happening, and they're the ones who eroded our power to begin with, so I mean, I heard one speaker say that we have more of a alternative kind of culture, and we need to embrace a revolutionary culture.
Mm-hmm.
You got a lot of people in the movement that are like coming from like some punk rock anarchist thing where they're still upset at their parents and they don't really know what oppression is, and if they do, usually it's like their animosity around gender politics, because
Mm-hmm.
which becomes paramount to them because there's no land issue. I mean, they're on our land, um, benefiting from racial hierarchies. So yeah, at that point they become obsessed with gender, when really they could learn those lessons from indigenous leaders who know about the Chanupa and who know about traditional gender roles and stuff to help alleviate some of this confusion that they're going through. So
Mm-hmm.
right now I'm very much about like red power, getting our Indian power, and not letting any groups divide. Like I was on a podcast yesterday and the person was telling me how Canada gave back land to some of the like Saskatchewan tribes, but they kept them separated so they could never get any real power. There's a saying going around, land is power, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
kind of questioning that. Like, yes, maybe to a certain degree, but not if like our sovereignty is being manipulated, if we're like separated, or here's the other thing, if we're not able to form our own standing armies, basically, our own
Mm-hmm.
like warrior clubs, we're not allowed to develop our warrior prowess because we're being controlled by some other force. So, yeah, I'm starting to question that saying land is power. Not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily. And we
No.
need our power back.
Mm-hmm. That's it's time. So I think that's a good place to end this is, it's time for us to stand up and, you know, get our power back. And
Mhm.
we need to stop. And this is the other thing as indigenous, we need to stop like putting each other down. And, if this is the thing is I had someone say some things to me yesterday, and I'm going to speak on this real quick. It's like, you know what? There's a lot, so many that have lost traditions because of genocide, and there's a lot that are doing the best that they can with the knowledge that they have that has been handed to them, and a lot of people also have to go on spiritual journeys to even be able to reconnect with their ancestors, to even know what their traditions were and to even know their history and things like that. So it's a whole nother spiritual journey that we have to go through, and not a lot of us are fortunate to be able to have all of this knowledge. So if you do have this knowledge, then how about you turn things around and you come from a place of love and
Mhm.
help educate those of us that do not understand or may have not been taught those traditions or protocols or things like that? Can we like start coming from a place of love? And if you have knowledge and you see somebody maybe doing something incorrect or say something and they need to say it differently, or um you know, introduce themselves in a proper way, then why don't you take that time to, with love, and say, you know what? I know a little bit about your history, and can I educate you? Can I teach you? I have some knowledge, from your people that I could share with you. And this is how you're supposed to do this. This is how you should speak this way. When you're introducing, you should go, speak this way. There's all these different things, and I'm seeing this all over the social media with natives, where they're just like, they're laughing, or because we come in different shades of colors and skin, then that I could be more native than you because I'm a little bit darker than you, and but yet maybe you actually are on paper more native than me, but I'm a Plains Indian, Plains. So my people are naturally darker. And so it's like,
Sure.
people
So
don't look at the location of things. And so it's like, I just want to say that we are all learning, we are all growing. And if you have knowledge and you are fortunate to have been able to be raised traditionally, and to have your language, and to have these resources, then maybe take a look at yourself. Instead of being so mean to people, maybe turn that around and educate, and help others educate, and come from a place of love, so that we don't hurt each other anymore, because we all are hurting. We all want our story to be told and shared. And it's not just Indigenous, just people in general. We all want our story to be heard on some level. But speaking from an Indigenous to Indigenous, we need to learn how to come together and embrace each other, and put away these jealousies and these mean things that can be done, that I'm seeing, a lot of people doing, for those of us that are actually trying to step up and share our voices and make a difference. And those who are, we should be supporting them. We should be backing them up, because at least they have, the courage to step up in the forefront and to speak. And it's not always easy. So let's come from a place of love and support, and support our brothers and sisters. And if we are to blossom as a rose, and if we are to have these visions and these prophecies come forth, that I've heard stories from many, then we really need to exemplify that love, that and the harmony that once was here on this earth and in the Indigenous land. So I'm going to leave that with today. And you know if you want to read more articles and things like that, I posted that in the bio below. So there's some articles that Mato gave, with so they're beautiful articles. I read them. um, so go ahead and then follow him, and he has his email on there and things, so you can contact him for more information. If if this speaks out to you in helping the wolves, then we can get you connected, and resources and things like that. And is there any last words that you would like to finish with?
no, I think what you were saying there was great, and it's hard to be the medicine when we're traumatized or people are trying to constantly erode our power. But that's a good reminder to be the medicine.
Yeah,
I
thank you.
I have a friend who says that all the time. Be the medicine.
Well, it's true. We need to. And, we're all trying to do our best out here. And, we live in a different time where we really, as Indigenous, you have to be in that prayerful heart, um, every day, in order to have that connection with your ancestors. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's something that a lot of people don't understand, is that it actually takes more work for us, that don't have those connections. And like with me, my grandmother, she passed, and so it left with her. So now I have to work even harder to stay spiritually connected so that I can hear her, so that I can hear my ancestors speak to me and teach me. And that's a whole nother thing that people don't realize, that we go on these spiritual journeys every day, and fasting every day. I fast every day, just so that I can hear my ancestors, so that I can have further knowledge to help you guys. So I'm just going to leave that with that,
Thank you.
be kind, be love, you guys.
Mm.
There's enough evil in this world that we don't need to be hurting our brothers and sisters even more. So just be love, be light, and beauty. So I'll leave that with you guys. And, I hope you all have a good day today. And with things coming up, you just got to stay in that connection, stay focused. Like I was saying, stay focused on that pulse, stay focused on creator. Be aware of what's going on around you, but stay focused on your mission and your drive, and
Right.
keep going, and be love, light, and beauty. And I'll leave that with you guys. Oos. Thank you.
Thank you.